Okay, welcome back to Youth Group Recap. Today we're going to talk about how God's presence is the point. Okay, so in previous lessons we've gone over, I think it was a year or two ago, we covered the Tower of Babel and how the Tower of Babel was likely a ziggurat structure. So a ziggurat was an ancient structure. It resembled a pyramid, but it did not have an inside, right? It was stuffed. It wasn't hollow. It wasn't like a typical building, right? So it was mud covered with brick. They had no inside, but it had a stairway on the outside, and then there was a room up there, kind of like what we would consider a guest room. And the whole main point of the ziggurat was inviting the deity to come down. And I say deity because many different cultures had these structures and kind of just swapped out their regional god and their regional belief system with the same basic structure, okay? So, it represented the belief of gods traveling to the human realm. So if you've done that lesson with me, this is all familiar. You may even remember Genesis 10 and 11, the Tower of Babel was an invitation that God actually did accept, just not in the way the ancient people had expected, right? So the Bible is 66 books. It is by approximately 40 authors, and it was written over a period of 1,500 years. And yet, consistently, the theme is of God's presence with mankind, God with us, is throughout. So we're going to talk about that today. We begin in creation with God forming man from the dust. We see God walking in the garden in the cool of the day in Genesis 3:8, and in Genesis 5:24, we see Enoch walks faithfully with God. Genesis 11, God comes to see the tower, right, that we just mentioned. And then we get to Abraham. And so then in Genesis 12, God calls Abraham. Genesis 15, he covenants with Abraham, and his presence is represented in this smoking fire pot and this flaming torch. In Genesis 26:3, God's now talking to Isaac, so continuing on that covenant, right? Isaac is Abraham's son, and God tells Isaac, stay in this land, I will be with you. Okay, Genesis 28:15. Now God's talking to Jacob, so Abraham's grandson. Look, I am with you. And if you've studied anything about the names of God, or if you are familiar with the passage, when Moses asks God what his name is, God says, I am who that I say I am. And so many of these passages that have to do with God's presence, listen for the I am, because it's there in an overwhelming number. So that's kind of exciting too. That's just a side note. Okay, so we have 3 verses about God being with Joseph. Genesis 39:2, Genesis 39:21 and 23. But Adonai was with Joseph. And then in Genesis 46:4, we have God talking to Jacob again. I will go down with you. This is God to Jacob when he is getting ready to leave the promised land, the land that God called his grandfather to, and go to Egypt. Okay. And then 400 years, the Israelites were enslaved to the Egyptians. And then God raises up Moses to deliver and lead his people. And so then in Exodus 3:12, God says to Moses, I will surely be with you. Exodus 8:18, so that you will realize that I am Adonai right here in the land. Exodus 14:20 through 22, Adonai goes before them in a pillar of cloud by day and the fire by night. Exodus 16:9, Moses says to the Israelites, come close to Adonai, which teaches us not only that it's possible to come close, but that it's a voluntary choice on our part. Exodus 17:7, the Israelites test God by asking, is God with us or not? Exodus 19:11, God comes down to Mount Sinai. So God is coming in a visible form, so this new fledgling nation can see him. And I just find that so incredibly amazing. Exodus 20 through 21, Exodus chapter 20, verse 21, I will come to you. Exodus 25:21, God establishes the Ark of the Covenant as where his presence will dwell, and the tabernacle is his place of meeting. And in Exodus and Leviticus, God sets up the practice of animal sacrifice as a way to represent forgiveness of sin so that he can dwell with his people. Exodus 29:10 is the slaughter of the bulls. And it's called, and it even says in the text that it's in the presence of Adonai. So God is there witnessing this animal sacrifice, the innocent animal for Israel's sin. This is foreshadowing of what is to come, right? So I'm going to read you Exodus 29:42 through 45. Which means I need to actually flip back to it. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. For the generations to come, the burnt offering is to be made regularly at the entrance to the tent of meeting before the Lord. There I will meet with you and speak to you. There also I will meet with the Israelites, and the place will be consecrated by my glory. So I will consecrate the tent of meeting and the altar, and will consecrate Aaron and his sons to serve me as priests. Then I will dwell among the Israelites and be their God. They will know that I am the Lord their God, who brought them out of Egypt so that I might dwell among them. I am the Lord their God. Okay, so then Exodus 25:8. So I may live among them. Moses dies, and then Joshua is raised up as the new leader. And God tells Joshua in Joshua 1:5, as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. So God is reassuring Joshua of his continued presence, even though Israel's leader and Joshua's mentor is gone. Then we have the new facet of God's presence is revealed. He reveals to us his Shekinah glory, which is also translated the divine presence or just his glory. We can read all about this in Exodus 25:8, 29:45 through 46. When I just read the word glory in this last passage, some translations have the footnote that it is talking specifically about God's Shekinah glory. Numbers 35:34. 1 Kings 6:13, Ezekiel 43:9, Zechariah 2:1 through 4, and then John 1:1 through 14, as well as other places. But those are some places we can go to read about God's glory dwelling with humans. Okay, so then we get to some of my favorite prophets, Isaiah and Jeremiah. So let's talk a moment about context. Okay. We are covering verses about God's presence, but when Isaiah and Jeremiah were writing, Assyria and Babylon were coming to destroy Israel. And in Ezekiel, this is like right post-destruction. So this is an awful time in their history. Death, starvation, famine, war, plague. They don't ignore these circumstances. They being the prophets, they faithfully record what God has said will happen, and yet their books are replete with reminders of God's presence. So we have these devastating prophecies, but we also have God's continuing promise that he will, even though that they are going to be judged and taken away, they will be brought back. He is going to restore them. He is going to be with them. That he will be their God and they will be his people all throughout. Even as destruction is coming, all of these prophecies are also hand in hand with God's promises to be with his people. Okay, Isaiah sees God in the temple in Isaiah 6, and then also 7:14 and 8:8 talk of God's presence with his people. And Isaiah 33:21, there in his splendor, Adonai will be with us. And then Isaiah 41:10, don't be afraid, for I am with you. Jeremiah 33, call to me and I will answer you. Jeremiah 41:13, for I, Adonai, your God, say to you as I hold your right hand, have no fear, I will help you. And then Jeremiah 43:5, I am with you. Okay, so moving on out of the that section, and really I should have actually put David and Solomon before the prophets. Sorry about that. But anyway, so 2 Samuel 7:9. I'm gonna make this note. Should have. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so 2 Samuel 7 and 9, chapter 7, verse 9. God is saying to David, I have been with you wherever you went. And then in 2 Chronicles 5, God fills this new temple that Solomon built. So all of this is leading up to Emmanuel, God with us. So I'm going to read you John 1:1 through 14. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning the light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor human decision, nor a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Woo! All right. So John 1 echoes Genesis 1 on purpose. There's a reason they both start with in the beginning. Jesus is the embodiment of God's revelation and the fulfillment of his creation. Jesus is the image of the invisible God. So it's like he is redeeming all of creation just by coming, okay? So Jesus makes it possible for us to have unity with God and to enjoy his presence here on earth, and then someday with him forever. And good news, he's with us now, and he will be with us until the end. When he went back to heaven, he said he was going to send us a helper, and that's the Holy Spirit. And that could be its own lesson, all of it its own, and so I think it will be. But God is going to be with us all the way through the end. Matthew 28:18-20. All authority in heaven and on earth have been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. Thanks for watching.